Welcome back to the Breathing Space podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Harris, and this is the space to come to reconnect with yourself using the breath and also to learn about patterns or anything that's getting in the way of you feeling your feelings, feeling the full expression of who you are. And that all comes back to intentionally connecting with yourself and your body using the breath. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode, I was going to dive more deeply on finding meaning in the mundane, which is this week's Substack newsletter. And you can find that on the Breathing Space Substack. If you are not following me there, I would highly recommend it. That's where the majority of my content and things are going to be appearing in the weeks to come, including community spotlights, community connect, and feelings-focused posts for paid subscribers, as well as the weekly Monday newsletter and Wednesday podcast. You can find it all there. And I was going to talk a little bit about that, and maybe I will, but what's coming through is really about this idea of being honest. And I find myself on the precipice of a huge transition in my life. And I honestly don't know how things are going to play out over the coming weeks, where I'm going to end up, what my life will look like, and talk about how I'm dealing with that. There's a lot of uncertainty in my future right now. And I just want to be honest with that, because I think a lot of what I see in the personal development space is it's like we're advised as coaches or whoever to speak from a healed place, where you're not speaking from an open wound, but you're speaking from a scab, like it's already been healed and now you've learned something from it and you can share that with others. And there is value in that, in knowing that you can come out the other side and this is what helped you. And there's also something to be said for being in the messy middle, in the process, in the uncertainty, and holding space for it. Because if there's one skill that I've really had to learn and develop throughout my healing, throughout everything, is this ability to hold space for myself in the uncertainty, in the duality, in there's multiple different ways that my future could look, and holding space for all of them until the one that I want emerges. And so that's been, if you want to know the oh, look, she actually knows what she's talking about. That's the application of the work that I've done, is being able to be in the messy middle without completely losing it, cutting off my hair and running away, which is a sentiment that I definitely also feel right now about wanting to burn it all down. I've talked about this in many articles over the past few weeks. Burn it all down, the urge to bold. I have a podcast episode on that. And just leave. And this is how I used to cope with things in the past. I used to run away. I used to move across the country. I used to move across continents into the other side of the world and go teach in China, or go live in Sweden, or go live in Nova Scotia. And I'm from Ontario in Canada. It's the other side of the country, for those of you who maybe don't know Canadian geography, which is probably quite a few. And that's kind of the pattern. And I feel that desire come up again within me. And I hold space for it. And maybe that will end up being the thing that I do. And it's not now an automatic response. It's something that I'm considering and then will make the decision on. It's not a reaction. I'm actually able to respond and think through the urge. It's not just an impulse that I give into. And so here I am in the messy middle. I found a Substack by that name, and it really resonated with me. And just kind of figuring things out, looking honestly at myself. My body is not where I want it to be. My business, my everything seems like it's just not quite where I want it. And that's okay. I'm making that be okay. And even if it's not okay, I'm okay with it not being okay. while I work through this, because I think there's such a kind of, I don't know how to phrase it, there's such a strong pull to make a decision, to go back to certainty, to having the answers. We all want that, and even when we buy a service, we're buying certainty basically. And so I'm presenting another side of, well, what if instead we were okay with the uncertainty? Because even if we look at it from a human needs perspective, here I am going back into my head and rather in my feelings. If we look at it from a human needs perspective, we all have the need for uncertainty. It's also called variety. And so when things get certain, we have this response to like change it up. Because if you know everything, you have absolute certainty, you can predict, I know what I'm doing at this time, this is what my life will look like in 20 years. Well, it gets rather boring. At least that's my perspective. So the need for certainty and uncertainty are constantly playing against one another. And what I'm finding is through all this uncertainty outside of myself, in my life, in where I'll end up being, I can find the certainty within myself. I can stay connected with myself. Even when myself is changing. It's like I just have this faith in me that I'll be there for myself. I'll be the one who's got my back, even when things suck and are hard and I don't know what the heck is going on. I even question who I am. It's like I know I'll see myself through it though. That's the underlying feeling there. It doesn't make it any less scary. It doesn't make it any less lonely at times. It doesn't make it, well, it makes it more safe, I would say. I have more safety with myself than I did before. Even when, maybe you don't feel safe with friends or family or strangers, you can find safety with yourself. And that's what, through all of this, I've come to rely on, is I have to be the safe place for myself. I have a mentor who I follow and used to work with. Our contract just came to an end. And she started talking about finding safety in her business, and that's her safe space. And that just didn't resonate with me because I want to be my own safe space. Not my business, not my relationship, not my friendships, not anything. It's me, and I carry myself through it. Because sometimes your business, especially if you're an entrepreneur, is up and down. And so I have to be reliant on myself. Sometimes your relationships are up and down, and I have to come back to myself. And sometimes, even if you have a steady 9-to-5 job, that could end, and you have to be reliant on yourself. And so this is what I remind myself of when I'm going through the messy middle, when I'm not sure what I want, where I'll be. It's like coming back to myself, holding space for myself, holding space for all the possibilities, all the emotions, all the things. And if we bring that back to finding meaning in the mundane, that's exactly it. When I feel all these feelings and I'm holding space for it, one of the things that's really helped me lately is coming back to the mundane. Is sitting outside in the sun now that it's spring and warm enough to do so, and watching Daisy chew her stick, or lighting incense and watching the smoke billow around, changing direction, or wiping down the counters in the kitchen and noticing how they shine and how that makes my heart swell, and the joy that I see in walking, and there's wind and Daisy's ears blowing in the wind, and I feel that as like an uplifting sensation, and just starting to notice these sensations in my body in moments and finding pleasure in them. That's been super helpful. And these are all mundane things: walking the dog, drinking a tea, wiping the counter. They're not exactly like peak experiences, let's say. And yet they're the ones I find most meaningful, the ones I find most relaxing and peaceful and joyful, and the ones that mean something to me, to connect with myself or connect with the world around me in a way that feels safe and feels accessible. And we don't have to pay a lot of money for that. We don't have to travel anywhere or be anyone different. We can just land back here in the moment. And a meditation teacher that I studied with, he used to use a technique of inviting us to light a candle and stare at the flame. And I'm just reminded of that because I do that with the incense lately. I love watching the smoke, and you can just place your attention on the flame as it flickers in the candle. And if it's a scented candle, you can bathe in the scent of it. And just, if you feel your attention wander, you come back to it. I do the same thing with my breath, sitting with the breath and placing my attention on it. And when I feel my attention wander, coming back to the breath, focusing on the inhale and the exhale, focusing on the expansion of my chest and belly with the inhale, the contraction with the exhale, feeling the air enter, the temperature, if there's a smell, if there's a texture. This is often how I begin my sessions with clients as well. I'm placing this attention on the breath, on the body, coming back into the present moment before we even start the more kind of intentional breath patterns. Just being here. And that's the practice that I carry with me throughout all of this, is coming back to the breath, is coming back to this kind of mundane thing. We're constantly breathing, constantly. You wouldn't be alive if you weren't breathing. It's a very mundane action in and of itself. And it's also a very meaningful action. That's the beauty of breath work, is we take this thing that we just do without even thinking. It's part of our autonomic nervous system. It's an automatic response. This is the beauty of the breath. We don't have to think about it. Our body just does it. And we can place conscious awareness on it and do something like breath work, where you can literally go to other realms. You can have altered state of consciousness. You can be so fully present with yourself and your body in the moment. You can have a sense of groundedness. You can have all these things. You can have nothing happen at all. And it's just in being with that mundane in and out, inhale, exhale sensation of the body, automatic response of the body, the thing that we do thousands of times each day without thought. This is finding meaning in the mundane. This is finding meaning amidst the chaos that is life, the uncertainty that is life. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's when I talk about meaning in the mundane. It's really this process, this coming back to yourself, no matter where you are, no matter what's going on, landing here now with yourself. And I've fallen away from this practice at times. It's definitely challenging at times. It's the thing that we often resist the most, because it's so easy to go up in our head or get distracted by what's going on around us. You won't know this on the recording, but I just took a pause to go eat breakfast with my partner, and I had one of these meaningful mundane moments where I move. There's a routine with my dog. We do all our outdoor time and bathroom business and all of that, and we have a cuddle, and then in the morning I move her bed into the sun, and she'll lay in a little sun puddle on her bed in the front room. And I felt the meaning of it as I looked upon her, and I felt the warmth in my chest, and my heart felt like it was getting bigger. And that's finding moments of meaning in, this seemingly just a average Wednesday morning, and yet I'm able to find the pleasure in these moments. And that's the power of these things. You're able to get outside of your own head and whatever else is going on, and just be, and to be present, and to come back to what's meaningful. So I really think that kind of brings this episode to a close. It's a shorter one than normal. I would just invite you to try and find these moments throughout your day to pause and to just see if you can sink into the meaning, find the meaning for yourself in this moment. Even as something as simple as unloading the dishwasher and noticing how you feel. Or, like I said, wiping the counter, and I just appreciate the shiny countertop and get a sense of like, almost like a sigh of like relaxation of noticing that these things are clean and my space is organized, and just having an appreciation of that. And it's really like I can just release a breath when that happens. And see if you can find that for yourself. Just one moment throughout your day where you're able to notice the sun coming through the window or landing on your skin and you feel warm and peaceful, or making the bed and then seeing the crisp sheets, or you made the bed and then the evening you open and you pull back the sheets and they're nicely made and you get into this freshly made bed and you're able to just sleep. And it's these things that add up over the course of a lifetime. I think so many of us, well, I'll only speak for myself, seek these peak experiences, these peak moments. We think, if we travel across the world, or we make a certain amount of money, or I don't know, any of these other sorts of accomplishments, we lose weight and we're at this certain size that used to be mine, then we'll feel a certain way and things will make sense and it'll all be worth it. But when I'm in these moments, the thing that I notice is all these like thoughts of things I should be doing, or what I should have accomplished by now, or that I want to run away and flee, they subside. And when I'm here in the present, when I'm just being with myself, being with this moment, that's where I find the meaning. That's where I find peace, and that things are enough just as they are, and actually mean it. And so looking to find that throughout all this messy, chaotic things that are going on around us, our tumultuous emotions included, and beginning to notice, beginning to sink into. And it doesn't have to be long. It can just be 30 seconds to begin with, just noticing, having the awareness to begin, of stopping in the moment, like, oh yeah. And then you begin to feel things in your body and realize, and it doesn't take away, it's not avoiding what's going on around you, but you can find a respite, and you can find what you're searching for in these moments. So I invite you to try that out for yourself. If you would like to go deeper into that, I'm doing my monthly open circle breathwork on May 1st at 7 p.m. I'll leave the link down below. I'll also leave the link to my article about finding meaning in the mundane. You can join me on Substack to get all the updates there. And if you really want to book a one-to-one where you have space held for you, you can do so. I'll drop a link down below as well. And with that, I hope you find a meaningful moment in your day today. And I don't want to say challenge yourself to do it, just an invitation to try and to see. And with practice comes integration, and with integration becomes embodiment, and it becomes easier. And so let this eventually become embodiment. But for now, it's just a practice. Just like everything in life is a practice. Breathwork is a practice. Yoga is a practice. Emotional regulation is a practice. Everything is a practice. And eventually it becomes embodied too. And you still continue with the practice, because you can still experience new things every time. Every time I'm shocked that you'd think petting the dog would be the same every time. That's a meaningful moment to me. That's why I bring it up. And yet, it's different every time. Every time I do breath work, you think I'm doing the same breathing pattern, why would anything be different? But I'm different in every moment. In every moment, I'm a different person. A different part of me comes out. I'm in the present moment, and a new learning will come through, a new insight, a new connection from the universe that wasn't there before. And that's why I don't get bored in these things. I used to think that, when I see people who are like, oh, I enjoy gardening or reading or, these quote unquote kind of boring activities. I mean, reading's not boring to me, but it just seems so run of the mill. Like, I always wanted to be like someone, I go rock climbing for fun or something, like, a unique hobby. And yet I think it's exactly this that is why people enjoy gardening or these slower, almost meditative things that you find retirees drifting towards in their older age, as a stereotype. But it still rings true for a lot of people who I know, at least. When they get older, they are more drawn to these slower paced activities, and not just because maybe their bodies are slowing down. I think they're just able to find the meaning that's there, that we get so in our youth. I think of myself in like my 20s, run from it. We think, that's boring, like I'm gonna go do something new, fresh, and exciting, and not realizing that every moment has the opportunity to be new, fresh, and exciting. Like, this moment has never existed before. Hear me sitting drinking my tea, which I do every morning, and yet it's different every morning. I show up differently every morning. And that's what makes it so peaceful, so meaningful. I keep saying the word meaningful, but that's really it. I can try and find another word, but the truth is that's what lends the meaning to me. And so an invitation for you to try this practice. And maybe I'll go make a practice to kind of guide you through it. I have one on my Substack about dropping into the moment with a cup of tea or coffee. So I'll leave that down below too. It's about being present in the moment. I made it several months ago. So this is really a practice that I've been doing for a while. And for me, I began this practice not just with like lighting candles and burning incense, burning things. I also found it with my morning cup of tea, because I find it so much easier to be present when I've got something warm in my hands that I can kind of ground into. Just like the breath. Like, once you find something that you can ground into, whether that's a warm mug of something in your hands, which is what I used to do with my meditation when I was first starting to meditate, whether it's with the breath, whether it's with putting your feet on the earth, all sorts of things can lead you to being really here and present. So I'll leave all those links down below. You can check it out, and I will catch you all next Wednesday.